Thank you very much. I have been asked to talk to you about the Paulus Church in Grünerløkka in Oslo, beauty for the working class in the 1890s. Paulus Church was built in 1892 in a Gothic historicist style to house the new congregation of factory workers mostly in eastern Oslo, with the growth of Oslo in the industrial age. The whole thing actually started with Georg Andreas Bull, who made the plans for the area of Grünerløkka, and he planned it with a beautiful large park in the middle called Birkelunden, the Birch Grove. And his idea was to have a church and a school forming sort of axis of life, from education through the everyday and to divinity and eternity, which you can sort of see here. The axis starts with the school. Here's the pavilion and the park parts, and then the very important church that punctuates this axis. He brought out a competition, which was won by his son. And Henrik Bull was a brilliant young man of 23 when he won the competition, and he went on to do great things later. But this was his first major built work. So I wanted to show you a few of the drawings, because this is the plan for the basement of the church, but even here you can see the extreme symmetry and the axiality of the way it's been built up. There's an emphasis on progression, but at the same time he brings in a very useful motif of side wings going perpendicular to the long. This is a whole church type, but it still doesn't feel too long because he introduces that theme. Another thing that the side wings do is to sort of connect the large tower, which has this very important function in the urban scheme of Birkelunden. And he's able to connect the tower and the scale of the surrounding buildings with the need for a point of focus in this large urban room. So he has a lot of important stuff happening at more or less eye level here. Then you get these large roofs, and the middle of the tower is connected visually with the roofs through its relative simplicity, and then in the end you get the spires that soar towards the heavens, similar to the theme of perhaps education, life, and eternity that we were talking about earlier. So what you can see here is that even though this is an extremely vertical building, he's able to make it land on the ground quite cleverly, and he breaks down the scale of it in my way, in an impressive manner. And he's also able to connect the different parts, so that even the tower has, for example, these bands of glazed brick that connect the long volumes with the tall ones. And there's something almost like a medieval fantasy about this. You could imagine a church that's 800 years old, looking like this, with little additions and things springing out and things building out from the relative simplicity of the original volume. So this is the church when it was only 8 years old. I think this is seen from the schoolyard, actually. You can see how it, again, connects with the scale of the buildings behind and around it, but still does this very singular thing with the tower, and also you can see another theme that we've been talking about, which is the use of arches. So that even though you count this as a Gothic church, there's use of the segmental arch. There's a few semicircular arches, And all of it is very rounded. There's also some arches that sort of negotiate these different themes in very interesting ways. You can also see very easily here how the main spire has little spires on the side. So you have one big, tall, octagonal spire, and that spire has 4 side spires, which connects to a square base. So there's even a theme of fractal composition here, which is, universally acknowledged to be beautiful. There's other themes here, which I think made people connect with this church. It became loved very, very early on. And you could say that it's a church that has these almost sensual qualities. There's beautiful color, the use of light from the side wing. It pours in a very lovely manner that makes you feel very welcome. The sound there is delightful. There's a movie called The Usynlige, which was taped partly in this church, which has a lot of organ playing, and it has this warm, wonderful quality to it. Then again, there's comfortable seats relatively. There's a lot of wonderful use of ornament, and you could also imagine, referring back to Nadia's lecture before me, that most of these people descended from the countryside. Some of them might have moved there, or their parents did, and a lot of what Bull did here was based on countryside churches and countryside buildings that he did a lot of measurements of, and then translated it into this context. So when he wanted to build something for this, factory worker population, I think he was able to connect with their roots and their references using architectural means, which is also something we could strive more for today, in my opinion. The church aged not poorly, but there were challenges. It was built on clay, so that was a challenge. They had to work with the basement of it. You can see the roof originally had patterns in the slate, which is gone by now. Later on, the slate started falling down. There were problems with the walls, with the brick. There were changing ideals so that the old gas lamps were replaced with newer electric ones. There were ornaments being painted over. So by 2013, there was much need of restoration. And that's where you got in some very, very talented craftspeople working both on the outside, changing the roofs, and on the inside. This is a decorative painter called Grazina Katarina Kruger, who did wonderful work in restoring and reconstructing the ornamental scheme of the church. So just showing you a few of the pictures from what she did. Another example, in my opinion, of that we still have so many talented craftspeople. You sometimes hear there's no craftspeople to build classical architecture, but this is just one of many, many examples that's not true. There's very talented people going about what they do, which actually also goes for the lamps, because what they were able to do was to recreate the original gas lamps at the restoration in 2017 with electric lights and hang those. So that this picture was taken yesterday, and you can see it's still a thriving, wonderful, welcoming space. It's solid, but it's soaring. It's connecting with the brick architecture that's typical of this part of Oslo. You know, the brick factories, the simplicity of the built environment, both for practical use, for living factories, is taken in here. But again, it's elevated, it's transformed into something else. You don't have to be a believing Christian to see the parallels between religion and architecture in that regard. There's figurative ornament being used brilliantly. Just the way the gold leaf is used where you take the grounded colors of the earth and then give it shine and sparkle, and connecting to the natural world as well, and some very clever use of segmental arches leading onto Gothic arches, even with the reference of the blind arcade arch, connecting the long hall with the perpendicular wings. So you can see how it functions as an everyday space, as something that still speaks to people of different backgrounds. You can see a woman in the traditional Sami costume in the left corner, for example, and it's still a very lively congregation. It was the first congregation in Norway to have ceremonies for same-sex couples, and it's colorful, it's warm, it's inviting, and it still speaks to people more than 100 years after it was created. So Henrik Bull, with this early work, was talking architecturally about things that he would later come to elaborate. But already here you have the everyday as a starting point, the grounded, the natural, and then by the use of structure, by the use of ornament, by the clever use of historical references, and just a good hand at design, he was able to take the everyday into the divine. Thank you.